Howdy, Ags. Welcome into another edition of the Loochador Podcast. Filling in for David Nuno, I'm Richard Zane. He's Billy Liucci. And we're joined by TexAgs columnist, Heisman Trophy voter, Olin Buchanan.
I'm looking forward to this, OB.
So am I. I'm glad this is my first invitation
Zane.
for Luchador. I'm making my first Luchador appearance.
Yeah. Is it? I feel like you've done one other one. I think there's been one. I think if we go back in the archives, there's been one other Sunday when Nuno's been, was,
Well, I'm getting old and forgetful, so maybe there was.
That's true. Zane, I'm going to need, I don't need you to be like, what's the voice of like happiness and positivity, but I do need just at least a little like energy because you're hosting. So I'm like not going to be energetic.
Well, you know of all the people that work for you and your company, like as far as optimism, I'm like way down the ladder. Like I'm above Olin and Nuno, but I'm pretty far down the ladder.
What? So, you know what I say about Zane Olin? He's got really horrific bedside manner. Like if he was a doctor.
Right. He come and say, you're dying.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think he'd come in and be like, well, okay, so what is it, Dr. Zane? Well, here's the news. We got your test back and they're negative. We'll talk to you next and just leave. And you're like sitting there like, wait, was I just told good news or what just happened? That's Dr. Zane.
Well, I've got no good news to tell you today.
You don't.
I wish you did. But I don't.
I would love if you could tell me something good, Dr. Z.
The only good news is that I'm not a doctor, although
God.
there are a couple Dr. Zanes out there. With that, Liucci, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Listen to last week's episode of this podcast. You talk about how you have now changed and you turn right into Academy.
Yeah.
I'm still in that phase where I go left to check out the shoes.
No, I'm still.
You're going
I
left.
like to go. No, Zane, it's left still. Nuno goes right because he thinks he's a hunter fisherman now because he's been once. I still go to the left. You've got the shoes. You've got the workout equipment. You've got the baseball stuff. I've been saying I might start revisiting, getting a glove or mitt and start playing catch. They've got the boxing stuff, man. Like, you know what? I wish I'd have had one last night. Hanging bag, a heavy bag, something to go home to and pummel. There were some fights last night. It could have been good training. Actually, we don't condone fights here at TexAgs or Academy. Although someone close to us may have gotten into a fight last night, not me. I'm a peaceful guy generally.
I don't think it was Nuno either, just in case you're wondering, speculating why he's
someone
not
that
here
y'all
today.
don't see all the time. But anyway, you could go and get boxing gloves and just settle your differences like an old-fashioned, old-school pugilist.
Yeah.
And you could get that at Academy. You could get the weighted vest to run and train. You could think you're Rocky and you're going to get ready for next year's game starting today and go 365 days. Still, I have to go down to Austin. Whatever you want, you can find it at Academy.
Yeah.
And you could have really used like a nice Carhartt last night that's in the stands there, nice and cold. It's that time of year.
The weather's getting cold.
It's finally starting to cool off, and there's plenty to. I think that's like my number one thing I like to buy at Academy.
We talked about fights. We saw a fight on the field, at least a couple of scuffles on the field last night. As arch rivals renewed their rivalry after a 13-year hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
Ags not coming out on the good side of that is Texas won 17-7. Liucci, I don't know exactly where you want to start with this.
Yeah.
Just your, I guess, overarching thoughts on the game and the night as a whole.
Honestly,
wherever you want to go.
This booklet I have not looked at yet because I watched the game and I rewatched it, and it's like I don't need to really study the stats to tell you what I saw, and I don't even think it's a weird feeling because I could sit here today and I could tell you one thing or the other. And on the one hand, Olin, I think this score could have been a lot worse. 17-7, there's a world where that game could have been 27-0.
Or worse.
Or worse. I mean, but you don't go like give them everything. That they're not going to play the perfect game, but it could have been like just whatever. If you want to think it was 31, I'm saying it could have been 27 nothing. And then I'm also watching it going, they outplayed you, and just like the SEC race this year, you kept looking up and having these chances that you probably didn't, I don't say didn't deserve, but like you wasted your chance and then you were granted another one. Or you did something good, gave yourself another opportunity, and then couldn't capitalize. So just as soon as this could have been 27 to nothing, it could have been sitting there at 17-14 or 17-10 with a half a quarter left and real pressure going on the Texas side. And then there was a world where at the beginning, if you're watching that tape, I'm like, and people are going to say I'm complaining, I'm just saying how the game started. You don't get a holding call on the first drive, which didn't decide the game, but that drive probably ends right away. You drop an interception on their next touchdown drive that not only do you cost yourself getting the ball pretty well into their field position, but you let the guy catch it, and then they go all the way down and score. You had chances.
Miss a sack.
Where
you have your, again, we have your arms on the quarterback.
Talking about the Ryland Kennedy play.
Yeah, and then
that also should have been negated by the hold.
Yep.
But
you had
still,
opportunities.
But you still could have made the opportunity.
Yeah,
and yet, Ewers, who's not known as a great runner, and on top of that, supposedly has a sore ankle.
Yeah.
Runs away from your DBs and gets 26 yards.
Yeah, just that, and that goes to, again, like, there were so many things that could have happened because, look, the Aggies made their breaks down the stretch there. They forced a fumble. It wasn't like here, I'm just going to put it on. They forced a fumble. They got the interception, the pick six, which was just absolutely electric by Will Lee. But they, over the course of 4 quarters, it's like I said at the LSU after the LSU game. I'm not going to sit here and be like the LSU people were after A&M beat them. I'm not going to say, it's because they just weren't prepared for Marcel Reed. That's the only reason they won. No, the A&M defense forced 3 second-half turnovers, and you scored 6 points, and you got your asses kicked up and down the field because the Aggies ran for 240 yards and you ran for 24. Now, I know A&M ran for more than 24, but I know this.
But how many
net yards
rushing? Run for?
Net yards rushing, Texas, 240, A&M 98. That is the only stat that or not the only, it is the stat that most sums up this football game. One team out-physicaled the other. One team ran the ball when they needed to, because there came a point in that game where they needed to. And I'll credit Sark for being, at times, he's a very finesse coach. And they came out and they kind of almost like rode that momentum from the Kentucky game last week when they ran it every play of that final drive to end the game and bleed that whole clock out. They came in here with a physical mentality. They came in here and they were better on both lines of scrimmage. And they came in and said, we're going to play SEC football. And I don't know if I don't think it was like some point he wanted to make. I think it was he saw something in that A&M defense, and he believed they can't run it on us. We're not going to let them. And I think they believed we can run the ball on these guys because South Carolina did, because Auburn did.
Right.
And earlier in the year, teams didn't forget that. Like South Carolina has, Auburn has. There's something there that we can just, if it has to turn into a shootout, we can adapt on the fly. But we're going to come out there and just get physical with these guys and see how it goes. And it couldn't have gone better for Texas. So
it's like Yoko said. He said we got annihilated. He used the word annihilated at the line of scrimmage, and it was. They dominated play, and yet, like you were saying earlier, despite all that, A&M still had chances. You're less than a yard away from getting within a field goal with 7 or 6 minutes still to play. If you get a touchdown there,
and we're going to talk later about those decisions.
But if you get a touchdown there, it's a game.
Oh, more than a game. I mean, then Texas gets the ball, have it with that place. I've seen a lot of the Texas fans and players saying that the atmosphere wasn't, and I'm like, well, when you're down 17-0 at halftime and it felt worse, it tends to quiet down. And that's again, cap tip to Texas, because full deal here, Zane, and you don't get it because you don't engage in the back and forth, because I don't think you could handle the highs and lows.
Probably
and
not,
losses.
but I'm also on a strict directive from you to
That's
stay
true.
out of it.
That is true. Well, it's not you. It's like, if we let me be the one, because if I have 30 of us going in there going crazy every time we win a game and then lose a game, we'd have. Let's just let this be a one-man circus for now.
I'm more than happy to let you take on those yahoos.
And it's, days like today, OB, are not fun for yours truly. But if we'd have won, I promise you, I would have been in here and I would have been real tired, because I would have been on this little app all night. Like, the sun would have come up and I would have been finding everything. So when it comes back around, you just got to own it. And I think, after this game, you have to own the fact that, like, look, they were better on the O-line. They were better on the D-line. It wasn't a one-night thing. I think A&M can match Texas in D-line talent, but they haven't matched them in D-line play these last few weeks. And it's so weird to me, because it was right when I was at the peak of, like, man, these guys are really putting it together up front against LSU in that second half, because that was lost in all this. They dominated those guys. Will Campbell, the O-line that was supposed to be so good over there, they dominated them. I go, okay, here it comes, right? Okay, that South Carolina D-line's tough, but how about these guys? Collins, Broughton, all those guys, they're tough, but how about these guys? And for the last few weeks, it has not been that way. And they got off to a slow start, and they finished slow. It's been, at the end of a 12-game season, I think it was a disappointing year for the defense. Not necessarily last night. It's a weird game to break down defensively when you give up 200-plus yards, 250 yards rushing, and a back that it would be like Amari Daniels doing that, because he's like their fourth stringer. And I've always thought he's good, Wisner, even when he was in Waco as a recruit before he went up to DeSoto. But when a fourth stringer goes for 250 and they lose, or 200, and they lose their All-American left tackle on the first drive. Was it the first drive?
Second one. I think it was about 6 minutes left to go in the game.
Yeah, it was on that long run. It was on that long run. You lose your second, your anchor left tackle, and you still do that? Like, I have a hard time praising the defense too much when you give up 17 points and a half, and it should have been 20 or 24. But you look at the final score, and you held the Texas Longhorns and all that talent and all those amazing, like, look, Alfred Blue makes that catch. Matthew Golden makes a catch. Quinn Ewers, you mentioned the scramble, some of the throws, the running game, and you hold them to 17. And you score 7 yourself. So you're only minus 10 for the game on defense. I think that's, I was disappointed in a lot of aspects of the defense, but A&M lost this game to me because of what they could not do offensively.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, when your offense doesn't even score a point.
Doesn't score, can't run the ball, can't really throw the ball, can't convert, turns it over. It's rough.
Yeah, rough's a way, nice way to put it. And yet, there were opportunities, and good opportunities.
Yep.
And in hindsight, had you kicked the field goal in the opening possession and then been more careful with the ball on your second possession, you might have been in a position where at least you had points on the board. Yep. Where they're in the fourth quarter, you're actually playing to win the game instead of hoping to get back into it. But it's easy to say that, hey, you should take the points because, quite frankly, I would imagine almost everybody in the stadium, when you're looking at a 4th and short, wants you to go for it. So it's easy to second guess.
Okay, let's talk about this. okay, yeah. First drive of the game, you go 9 plays, 65 yards. Second drive, you get the ball. You're on their side of the field at the 40.
40. You just got a first down.
You just got a first down on 1st and 10. Marcel takes a shot that he didn't need to take.
You shouldn't take it. And I think, and let me say this, and I'll get out of your way here, but I think that as Marcel progresses, the thing that he's going to learn and has to learn is be more cognizant of down and distance and all those things. He's thrown an interception in each of the last 4 games. All 4 of them have been on the opponent's side of the field, and 3 of the 4, all the SEC games, they were on first down.
Yeah.
Understand that you threw a prayer up into double coverage, way downfield, and in that situation, you're at the 40-yard line. You're almost in field goal range. Try to run for something. Throw the ball away. You got 2 more downs.
So look at South Carolina. It's you reference all 3 games, but South Carolina, you're on like the 28-yard line, 1st and 10 to try to cut it from a 10-point game to a 3-point game. Early 4th quarter, throw it away.
He said that he was trying to, but he couldn't get enough on it back then, and maybe that's
fine. I mean, you have to. It's just the job is you got to do it. He knows that. But I mean, so my point is 2 drives, nothing. You had the other drive. Where were they at? You had Bryce Anderson drops the pick. Not only does he drop the pick, but then it was that Gunnar Helm that caught it somehow. That dude made a lot of plays. I think that one, he was like, oh, wait, did that ball just hit me and I caught it? Like, that drive was over. That was their second touchdown drive. That drive was either a punt or A&M with the ball. What yard line was that? You can look it up. It doesn't really matter. It's probably inside their 30. And, I mean, just not capitalizing on these chances early to where we're going into the game with a really close halftime score, whatever it would be. Close, manageable, attainable, tie, whatever. You didn't take advantage, but one of those ended on that 4th down play. You had another 4th down play. What was it? That one was late 3rd, I think. 4th and 3 from around the midfield-ish area, a little on their side of the field. Marcel runs, doesn't get it.
Got 1 yard.
1 yard, and then you had the last one that kind of decided. It did decide the game. Game was over.
Yard.
Less than a yard, and twice you were in there. So on that drive, it was like 3rd down too. You had multiple shots, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. You had multiple shots at it.
You were
Tell me what you think.
To go from the 2.
Yeah, tell me what you think of the decisions and whatever else. Because at the end of the day, and forget about the one near the midfield. I think that is. I was literally sitting up there, and I go, I'd almost, because of how bad we've been in this situation and how unlikely it feels to get it, and the way your defense was playing, I'm like, almost think about punting it. You're down 10. But at the time, it was still 3rd quarter. I'm like, I'd almost consider punting here, but you will lose this crowd. Like, they would not be happy. It might have been the right decision.
Well, I think that one was actually late in the 2nd quarter. And
because he got hurt. You're right. That was late second.
Less than a minute.
Yeah, because that's why I said you almost say you want to maybe punt that one because Texas missed the field goal. But they'd had like 38 seconds near midfield. And with
all
the way,
3 timeouts.
And all 3 timeouts. So I'm like, people aren't going to like going in 17-0, but this could be 24 and they're getting the ball. But other than that, like I don't think there's a wrong decision on that one. But let's focus on the 2 because a lot of people are sitting there going 17-13 with 7-8 minutes left. Feels a hell of a lot different. A lot of people on that first drive are telling me you got to kick it here and get points. Both of those things are debatable. I want to know where you came off on both of them.
On both of the 4th down ones?
4th down ones. Start with the first one.
Okay, the first one. I didn't have a problem with them going for it. What I have the problem with is on 3rd and 2, you ran inside with Amari Daniels, and you got a yard. So I'm thinking I'm going to take a timeout, which they did, obviously discuss what they should do, and they come back with the same play. It's the same play that you ran on 4th and 1 at your own 34 against South Carolina and didn't get. And on replay, I'm seeing that it got blown up because the big defensive end ran through Theo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Theo's not a small guy, but if that's kind of a
put an extra
mismatch.
Tackle out there.
Put an extra tackle.
Which
you got
they've done. Which they do. I've seen Dewberry do that.
Right. So I think personnel-wise, it wasn't the best situation to run that play. But I need to see more creativity in that because A&M for the season has only made 7 of 17 fourth down conversions. Later in the game, maybe in the second quarter, they faced a 3rd and 1. Marcel was in the shotgun. He shifted under center, handed off to Jay Walker on a jet sweep, and you got it.
Yep.
I'm like, well, where is that?
What's so fun about fun? It can take any form. Be a sacred ritual.
Who wants chicken?
Or a random whim. For us, fun is everything. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.
I will say down by that wasn't goal line, but down there, I do get a little nervous about motion. But creativity is what you're saying.
Yes, something different than running the same thing that everybody sees that this is what you like to run.
But here's my thing with what you're saying. I agree. Like, I didn't hate going for it there.
No, I didn't either.
At all. Like, I go up 3-0, you're an underdog, get the crowd into it, but you really want to get the crowd into it, score a touchdown. We saw Jimbo do the same thing against Bama a couple of years, last year. Mm-hmm. 4th down there on the very first drive. 4th and 1. My only thing, and I want Mike Elko to stay aggressive in his calls. I would like to see the Aggies offensively, well, that's a whole nother conversation, but get a hell of a lot more aggressive, Zane, in how they attack. What I don't, when you lost Le'Veon Moss, okay, I think you have to factor these things in. Like, I know the concept is we got to be able to get a yard, or we're going to have a long game. Got to be able to get it. But I would be more like, can you get that yard? Can you, if you have to get super mega creative to get a yard on the first drive of the game, and you can't line up and run your tailback, especially if you get under center and get a yard between the tackles or whatever, I don't think maybe you shouldn't be going for it. Like, in other words, Texas D-line is really stout. We didn't get it on that's my thing. I said this last year with Jimbo. If you can't power them up on 3rd down and get what you need and they stuff it, that's your sign to kick it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I always think, as if you can't. Now, if you catch an 8-yard pass and you get tackled a yard short and get up to the line and try, but if they tell you on 3rd down, you can't run it here on us, and it's not your best back that runs with power, you don't have him, and you got to get too creative, and your quarterback doesn't always, get rid of the ball with timing and just see it and go yet. And at this stage, I would say kick that one. Mm-hmm. I didn't mind the decision, though, of going for it to start the game. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess what perplexes me is you took a timeout.
Yeah.
And this is what you came up with.
This is your play.
I think, remember last year.
That's the same thing at the end, right?
Remember last year against LSU when they scored on the 1? Remember how they did it? They put Mark Naboo back there.
Oh, yeah.
Get creative.
Yeah.
If in some
I
ways.
actually did hear they had a D-line package this week for the backfield.
What's the point of having it if you're not going to use it?
I said, and then the person that told me that, I don't remember if they were. I'm not sitting here saying it was the top shelf source on that. It was just somebody mentioned it during the game that probably would know. But look, Olin, short yardage woes killed you against South Carolina. Short yardage woes killed you against Auburn. Like, well, hell, the 2-point conversions, killed you against them. And obviously the other night. So my thing is, even on that second one, like, you got to know on 3rd down that if we don't get it here and we're anything more than, a football's length, we probably need to kick it just to make it 17-10 and give ourselves a chance. And I know the mindset is go for it on that much. You're probably going to get it. But I would have said, instead of banging your head against the wall on 3rd and 4th down, maybe get under center on 3rd down and try the sneak, or even Marcel over the top, or the running back over, whatever it may be, and then figure out where you're at on 4th and if you're going to. But I think that 3rd down call, being out of the shotgun, that's where I started to get bothered and go, there's a real chance they're not going to get this now.
And there was they lost 3 yards on it.
Yeah.
And it looked to me like Texas was saying they're going to run inside with. I mean, I think they've gotten so predictable on 2nd and goal from the 2, they ran inside.
Yep.
With Amari and got 1 yard. Then on 3rd and goal from the 1, they ran Amari inside and got nothing. So they take a timeout.
I know.
And say, hey, well, let's come back.
And I thought they were going to kick it. They started to bring.
Well, you don't take a timeout if you're going to kick it.
No, before the timeout.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to kick it, and then the timeout. And I wasn't screaming, don't go for it, in fairness. But like you said, like, if you go, it's got to work. And to run something that they've shown you time and time again is going to be difficult to make work. That's where that's where I'm like the decision. My biggest problem with the decision, Richard, like 3rd down shotgun. That was where I was like, oh man, just get under center.
I need
run it and then see where you're at. And if,
I need a half a yard. And I'm going to start off with my quarterback 5 yards deep.
Yeah.
I've never understood that.
I haven't either. And I was sitting there with literally a Hall of Fame quarterback and said, what do you do here? And he was like, under center all day. And this guy spent most of his career in shotgun.
Now, maybe if your center if your quarterback's not 180 pounds, maybe that's part of it.
Right there, over the top. Or, Olin, I know.
I'm just trying to be, trying to think of all the things that might have been going through their head and say why we are not.
It's not a terrible decision. When the play doesn't work, you go, what showed you over the course of that game or the last 3 weeks that it was going to work?
Yeah.
And I think, look, I think game management decisions, I don't care what anybody says, I think Mike Elko's done a hell of a job this year. My issue is the play calls, down there,
mm-hmm.
And like you said, if you're going to take a timeout, but just raise your hand if you felt super confident that A&M was going to punch that one in after watching that series of plays. Raise your hand if you felt super confident. If I told you, you know what, they're going to run it. You thought they were going to run it right up the middle and get it. You felt that based on how that game had gone.
I mean,
just
because
hopeful.
I was being hopeful, and it felt like after they had gotten the chances, the pick six, then you get the fumble, then the block punt. It feels like things are going our way. We're finally going to find a breakthrough. That's what I was feeling.
Can't win with that. You have to look at. You can't go on hope.
What, hope's not a strategy?
You have, that a lot. And that wasn't. They weren't hoping, but they believed it could work, obviously. But I'm like, nothing in that game would have told me you should be confident that the Aggies could get that yard. That's all I'm saying. I think I like Elko's approach of being aggressive. I like it. But I think for the last few weeks, short yardage has been a noticeable problem. A noticeable problem for the Aggies. And at some point they've got to, you got to step away from that and go, unfortunately, this is not who we are right now. We want to be that. We don't want to be the team that can't get a yard against Texas or Auburn or South Carolina. But without Le'Veon, and for a couple weeks without Besantis, unfortunately, that's kind of like who we are. Maybe we've said these tight ends have gotten better as blockers throughout the year, but you don't have an NFL tight end that's just going to get his hands on you and blow you off the line of scrimmage or do a great job of,
or even stalemate.
Yeah. So you're not who you want to be yet. And so going back, Texas is who they want to be.
Yeah.
The Longhorns are who they want to be. They're who they want to be in year 4 under Steve Sarkisian. And I'll tell you, I went on a podcast the other day, a Texas one, and the whole topic came up of like, I was like, when were you guys sold on Sark? You know, like, because it was a 5-7 first year. It was an 8-5 second year, right? It was, I think it was 8. Yeah, it was 8-4. 8-4. And they lost the bowl game to. His second year is going to look a lot like Mike Elko's first year.
They lost to Washington, didn't they?
Yeah,
Bowl game?
yeah, Penix and them. Yep, that's exactly Alamo Bowl. But his first year looked a lot. So I was accused of clearly not watching much Texas football. And I'm like, no, unfortunately, I do watch a lot. I watch college football every Saturday as much as I can. I watch games throughout the week. I misjudged this Texas team because I also misjudged and misgauged the schedule. And where I misjudged and misgauged them was the defense. I didn't think their offense has been a lot of what I thought. They're not blowing the doors off people. They're very difficult to defend. They didn't go up and down the field. You know, they scored 17 against A&M. They scored 20 against Arkansas. And I credit Sark for winning games with his defense because this is a coach that you don't think would allow himself to almost become that guy that can lean on the running game and win with great defense because you know your defense will win it. The defense I misjudged because I thought you take out Tavondre Sweat and you take out Byron Murphy out of the middle, and I would have thought teams could have some success running the football, and that has absolutely not been the case. But if you think of the Longhorns, 3 years ago, Steve Sarkisian's going 5-7. They want to run Kwiatkowski out of town, and every one of y'all that's listening, because you guys want, you want to, just like they're enjoying me getting taken down today on Twitter by one Amanda Atwell, who credit for all the bookmarks. I'm sure there's more coming. I'm about to, I said the other day, join that Blue Sky, Olin. You know how those people do the announcement? Like when Trump won and they all fled to Blue Sky and then they were back like a day later. I was waiting for Olin to do that. Olin would have done it.
Or like that one night last year where we were all on Threads.
Yeah, Threads. We're going to Threads. I'm going to do the announcement. This woman is actually going to be the one of the Longhorns to actually end me on the app because of everything I said. It's been wrong. But it was this path, and she did point this out. Year 1, 5-7. Year 2, 8-5. Year 3, they went to the playoff. And I'm not saying that's A&M's trajectory. And I'm also not saying Texas was patient. They're fans. You think they were thrilled when they're losing to Kansas at home? You think they were thrilled when last year they lose to OU and lose the bowl, 2 years ago? I guess they lost to OU year 1 and went 5-7. This is built for the Longhorns. They hated Kwiatkowski. You did. You guys wanted him run out of town. He's done a hell of a job. It has built over 4 years, and they've done. I was complaining for a long time, Richard, of the runway that Texas had to come into this league. That was what. If you hear me complain and get pissed off, it's because I don't like something, and if I don't like something, there's a reason why I don't like it, and the reason was with a good recruiter and a staff of SEC assistants, and NIL machine behind it, and 2 years to recruit to the SEC while playing in the Big 12. Two programs had a type of advantage that A&M never saw because it wasn't in the NIL period when A&M did it, and it was only 1 year. Okay? One team took advantage of that, and one team didn't. OU has not. Texas absolutely did. And you could see it coming. You could see it in the trenches when they got Kelvin Banks. You could see it on the defensive line when they got Alfred Collins and they go get Colin Simmons. Like these guys they're getting are SEC dudes. And he built it at the line of scrimmage. And so Mike Elko, Olin, what nobody wants to hear today, and this is what you will not knock me off of this ledge no matter how hard you try. So you can say sunshine pumping, you can say whatever you want. Understand both things can be true. Tell me if you disagree with me. You had a golden opportunity this year kind of presented in front of you that I don't think many of us expected to see.
Well, you went to November as the only team in the SEC without a conference loss.
And then on top of that, when you were out of it, these teams gave you a gift.
Mm-hmm.
When your starting quarterback fell so far short of expectation that it's actually mind-boggling what we saw happen with Connor Wigman. And you still were able to recover. So you had all these chances before you, just like you had chances last night. So, yes, when you lose 3 in a row, and particularly to Auburn in that game, that's one you really should have had. Now you really leave it. It is both can be true, that you have a very sour taste in your mouth at how this regular season ended. That the way it ended shows you, hey, guys, you're a long way from being there. You're not, and Mike Elko will probably be the first one to say, like, you're close in terms of you can get the right portal guys and put a really good team on the field as early as next year, but like you got a long way to go before you're in the pack. Okay, you're not bottom, you're in the pack. You got a long way to go before you really are a team that can win a title, a team that can win a national championship, a team that's built to do that. That can be true. Disappointing finish. Leaves a bad taste going into the offseason. I think there are plenty of questions that a month ago you'd have hoped that they'd have kept doing this and that those questions were erased. Well, that's not what happened. So we're going to have a long offseason of trying to break this thing down and talk about all the areas they need to improve to not only remain this competitive, but go over the top. But damn, Olin, you can also say in year one, Mike Elko, and again, like argue with a wall if you want. You beat 2 top 10 teams at home. I don't care. You guys, you can't move the top 10 credit around. You won 2 top 10 games at home in year one. You had College game day here twice. You started 5-0 in the SEC for the first time in forever. You were relevant all year, all season. You were very relevant in this league right up until last night, where you took the field with a chance to play for the SEC title. Now, and then you got your ass kicked. But you took the field to play for the SEC title, and that was built on 11 games. That's never happened here. And I'm not saying this is a great year. I'm saying, no, this is a good first year for a first-year head coach with a disappointing finish. With a disappointing finish that you have a right to kind of look at it and go, okay, we got a lot of questions going in the offseason. But if you're questioning, can Elko do it? My answer would be, yeah, you can't sit here and guarantee yes, but if you want the early returns on can he do it, the answer is very positive, and it is, yeah, he looks like a guy that can do it. There's no guarantees. If he'd have gone 10-2 and they're in the SEC title game and reached the playoff, I would say, golly, it's over with. Like, they've arrived, and they're just going to roll from here. But I think in this season, compared to Sark's first season, Venable's first season, Napier, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, name them all, Olin, name them all. Brian Kelly went 1 game better at 9-3 and got there. Name any of them.
Nick Saban, right?
Nick Saban, yeah.
Who was, what, 6 and 7 his first year?
And that was so long ago. So I'm saying, name the active SEC, name them. And so this is good. And it's certainly, I think, as we see this season, you're not entitled for it to be better. It's not like A&M rolled into Auburn just with talent advantage across the board. But we all know, it could have been so much better with the way you entered November, and in some ways it should have been better. That's a fair way to feel both ways, I think.
Yeah, to me it's perplexing what happened to the defensive front.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden guys can't rush the passer, and all of a sudden guys can't get off blocks.
Yep.
And that LSU, that's Will Campbell and Emory Jones. So you're getting pressure. So what happened? What did other teams see that was the Rosetta Stone in dealing with A&M's defense, and why did it happen?
Yeah.
Because that team that we saw against Missouri and that we saw in the second half against LSU beats Auburn. I wouldn't have taken any win for granted at South Carolina because of the way they've been playing when you went there. But there should have been at least one more win. And at the beginning of this year, to your point about how maybe A&M, if you look at it in its totality, maybe to some degree exceeded expectations this year. I picked A&M at the beginning of the year to go 9-3.
Yeah, I did too.
Because I was picking them to beat South Carolina, and I was picking them to beat Auburn, and I thought they'd win 2 of their home games against the. And that's what I thought.
We were exactly the same, and I was on the fence of 8-4 and 9-3. And the reason why is this: I know, like, I thought the defense would be a lot better. The defense was beyond disappointing down the stretch. Again, they had an amazing second half against Auburn until that final drive. They had an amazing second half against Texas. They shut them out. Offensively, this is, and the whole Colin Klein thing, and people have been on him from Notre Dame to Texas. And I think rightfully so in those 2 performances. But I'm also like, the offense put up 31 at Auburn. What did Bama score against them last week with Milroe and DeBoer and
they had
28? A&M put up 31 on the road there. They outscored Clemson in the first half at South Carolina. What Clemson did for the game against that defense, they put up 38 against LSU. They go into the swamp and scored 33. The offense wasn't great, and it killed you in this game in Notre Dame, which is a big deal. I mean, that's 2 of your biggest games of the year. They lit up Missouri. But the thing, how many skill guys from the team you played last night look like they're NFL players?
From Texas?
Yeah.
I think Golden's an NFL player. I didn't see much of Bond last night.
Bond is, though.
He probably is. Yeah. I think the tight end's going to play in the NFL.
For sure.
Quintravion Wisner, to me, looked like an NFL player.
He did last night.
And Quinn Ewers.
Jaden Blue is.
That catch I didn't see a lot of him last night.
But I'm saying everybody, we saw a lot of them on that spectacular catch, which was enough. But every NFL scout I talked to, they're like, the guy, he can't run like A-Chain between the tackles. He's got to hang on to the ball. But, he's got Devon A-Chain speed, acceleration. Okay. He's an NFL guy.
And yours is
Wingo.
Yeah, probably. He's a young guy. But
Wingo, Will, and Ewers. And then, it's still ways to go. But Arch obviously checks all those boxes. Right. So all those guys I said. Now let me ask you this: how many skill guys at A&M played last night are NFL draft picks?
Maybe
Terry Bussey. Maybe he's a
Bussey
freshman.
will become one.
Yep.
Maybe. Maybe if he gets bigger, Marcel will become one. And when I say a draft pick, you're not saying first round pick, right?
Yeah.
And the other guy that maybe, and I don't think he's the number 1 receiver, and I don't think he ever is going to be, but Noah Thomas.
So maybe, I think Bussey is spectacularly talented. He's an NFL
but where's
talent.
He going to play?
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, you got time here.
He has that.
So he's so young. Marcel is a maybe, but he also, we know, and he'd be the first to tell you, he's got a long way to go in developing as a passer.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he missed a touchdown throw on that drive. Wide open, straight up the it's a touchdown. Didn't see it.
Right.
That's a 7-point swing. That was one of the 4th down stops. Those things happen a lot with any young, inexperienced quarterback. But before there's a long way to go before we call him an NFL quarterback.
Well, that's my point is, maybe.
Of the guys that were on the field last night, almost none. Le'Veon Moss is.
Yeah, Le'Veon.
Reuben Owens probably will be. Almost none. And so, and you can think of all the names I just said over there. Not to mention both their tackles are projected first-round picks. That is a massive, and it's not just Texas. When you take Moss out and you're playing Auburn, and they've got Jarquez Hunter and
Cam Coleman
and
Lambert
Smith.
Yeah, those
like,
are NFL players.
So when you're, it's a very difficult evaluation to me with this offense. Now, what I will say, the flip side of that is your job is to get players. There's a lot of portal money. You've got to go get them.
Mm-hmm.
Starting now, you have to. That portal opens up in what? 10
it
days?
Opens up the 9th, I believe.
Yeah, you've got to go get players. Like, you will not win games next year without playmaking receivers. You've got to go get a tight end that can do some of the things you saw. You don't have to be Gunnar Helm, but you got to get a tight end that can do some of those things that guy can do. And you've got to get a guy that can block on the goal line like that every time. That's just that part of it is what makes it difficult to me. But at the end of the day, all that said, you got a lot of talent on defense, and you combine those two, Olin, and when you're 5-0 in the league, and you go down 14-0 to South Carolina, 2 drives, and you go down 21-0 to Auburn, 3 drives, and you go down 17-0 to Texas at halftime. That's 14, 17, 31.
You were down 10
and
to
21.
LSU.
Yeah, that's 52-0 and 10-0 LSU. So 62-0. In your last 4 SEC games, you've been outscored like 62-0 before you scored. You've been down multiple 2 or 3 scores early in every game. That is not a winning formula. That is not what happened to them against Missouri. That's not what happened to them against Florida. That's not what happened. It's a problem, and it's something that Elko's got to figure out, like, why is this? And 2 of those 4 games you mentioned were at home.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of those, a couple of those games were, one of them the game you won, and another one was a team that, one of them you came back and tied it at halftime. The other one you came back and took a lead with 4 minutes left. These early holes probably cost you a chance to play for an SEC title this year. They did.
Absolutely.
They did cost you.
Yeah, if you don't get down like that against Auburn, you win that game.
Yep.
You don't get, like you said, they were down to South Carolina, came back and actually had the lead and made every kind of bad play you can on defense to enable South Carolina to go take the lead or tie it and take back momentum.
And I like this team, Zane, this year. I thought they were tough. I thought they played with a lot of heart, even last night and coming back. But it's a flawed team. We knew that going in the year. That's why you picked 9-3. That's why I was on the fence of 4. You knew that coming into the year. That's like, man, it's a nice group of portal guys, but it's not the most winning formula to have that many new faces, a new offense, a new defense, a new head coach. You're battling culture stuff. I think they had you can say they had a good year, and you can say they had a bitterly disappointing finish, a good first year of a coach, and a bitterly disappointing finish. There's a lot Mike Elko needs to work on, but a lot of this, and I will say this, you couldn't have expected everyone to walk away feeling any other type of way than pissed off, disgusted, than to go let that team in that color come into your stadium and go up 17-0 and beat you and do so physically. And you can't, that was the one thing that Elko and the Aggies did not need to have happen in terms of just vibes and feel coming out of the season. For them to come in, and even though the score doesn't say it, come in and kind of punk you. That was what they did not. They did not need that at all as a punctuation, to what was. Again, it was a good season with a bad finish, and this is because if there was one thing everybody wanted, it was to win that football game. Mm-hmm. And no matter what Elko tries to do and the players try to do, there is a limit. There's a talent and there's a limit. And here's my thing on that. I'm not saying you couldn't have beat Texas. The way that game played out, you could have seen how they could have done it. They didn't do it. So that's where frustration and disappointment.
Can I ask you one thing that's kind of about that game? Your thoughts on the targeting penalty that got overturned?
Oh my God. Okay. I had an official sitting right next to me, guy I know. He was working the game. He turned to me and he said, like, I don't know if he was listening to it, but he said, he's not a defensive player. He didn't lead with the crown, so it's gonna get waved off. And I was like, okay. And I was sitting there. I was sitting with Stanford Steve at the time, and so I'm sitting there watching. And he says that, and I'm sitting there. And I go, Steve, I'm fine with that, except for the fact that right here on this same sideline, in 2011, I got gift. With the 13-year gift because of a call on Trent Hunter that wasn't nearly that bad. It wasn't nearly that bad. And so that's where that pissed me off more than anything. And it also was not long after that egregious missed holding call on the edge there where Ewers had that long run. And I'm like, dude, if they're going to start doing this, and I don't mean like we're trying to win the game for Texas. I don't think the SEC does that. I don't. And you can argue with me all you want. I don't think they do. I don't. I know there's conspiracy. Olin probably thinks so because he's been in the SEC. You believe Bama.
I've always said that they don't cheat.
Yeah.
But they do know who's supposed to win.
Maybe an inherent bias, right? Not bias. But
it's just I've seen it too many times where you go,
Well, guess what? Try to get over and become that team.
No, that's true.
But it's hard to get over when things like that targeting happen, right?
I don't know why they say that he didn't use the crown of his helmet because I've watched it 4 or 5 times this morning. And he comes in and it's like right here, it seems to me, goes right into the face. Man. That's the head and neck area.
I think the targeting exposes just how big a dumbass some of these people that make these decisions are.
I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying Texas A&M would have won the game that they called.
But it should have been called.
I'm just was incredulous at that point.
And some of those plays are big early in games for momentum.
There was another one late, the substitution penalty. A&M had too many men on the field. Yeah. Texas was given the opportunity to sub, and I guess is it the umpire that stands over the ball and prevents the snap? He left before A&M had the opportunity to sub as well.
Yeah.
And that was on 3rd and 2. It negated a sack.
A sack and a fumble, which had you recovered it, which you didn't, but had you recovered it.
But it still would have been 4th down.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, look, where I was going though with the thing about Texas, like, so I talked about how the talent, I talked about A&M fans getting really pissed, and rightfully so. I was like, again, like, I'm not disgusted with the coaching effort this year. I'm not disgusted with the players. I'm actually far from it. I'm very disappointed in the last 3 SEC games, particularly just the way they started these games and just didn't give themselves a chance. But you're disgusted when you lose to Texas because of what you have to deal with, because of what this game means for both sides. They would be disgusted if they lost to A&M last night. But my thing is this: your disgust and your frustration, and you see an 8-4, or if you see a 7-5, or if you see Texas going to the playoff and going to maybe win an SEC title in year 1 when you couldn't do it in 13 years, that's our frustration. That's your frustration. It's more to do with your time in this league, and I would say since Johnny, but I would say since even the 2nd year of Johnny, when you had Manziel, Evans, Matthews, you lost 4 games in the SEC that year with a Heisman finalist and a Hall of Fame wide receiver and 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks on your O-line. And you went 4-4 in the SEC that year. So really since 2012, I will remind Longhorn fans, the Aggies would have been in the playoffs first year if they'd have had it. And that was a hell of a first year to go 11-2. But it's been a dozen years, and it was years in the Big 12 too, where they're not. That's the frustration, is why is Texas where they're at in year 1 and A&M's in year 13, and they don't want to have to sit here and say, hey, we're building. But the reality is you went and hired the coach from Duke because the coach at A&M didn't get it done. And look, you had to go find a new head coach because you were under 500 for the last 2 years in this league. And Jimbo Fisher could not get it over. He almost did, and he didn't. Paid him a ton of money to get here. You paid him more money to get rid of him. Kevin Sumlin almost flipped the culture. He almost did it early. He faded late. He was fired because of it. Same thing with Mike Sherman. It was a slow start. Looked like he'd start to build. Couldn't. I mean, you can go on and on. This is where the frustration is. People hate seeing 4 in the loss column. But to me, it's like your anger and frustration is because it's building, and Texas being there makes it exponentially worse, and understandably so.
I will say that I think Texas A&M's fan base, the fan population, I should say, are the least rewarded for what they put into it in the entire country.
Yeah.
You get less bang for your buck for what you put into it than any other program. They have great fans, great support, and their coaches, for the most part, over the years have let them down. Now, is Mike Elko going to be different? You know, we'll have to wait and see. I don't think you give up on Mike because of the way November played out. But at some point, all that loyalty, all that investment, emotionally and financially, you have to demand that it pay off.
Okay. I'm 100% with what you just said. And I actually responded to somebody today that was saying, we were having the same discussion. And my point was, yes, you're right. I agree. You have to demand that it'll pay off. There's too much money. And now, look, Mike Elko is going to go on the road and go to donors this whole offseason, and Elko and the collective, and they're going to go ask for more. That's today, as we sit here, imagine being the ones that have to go do that after last night. We're losing it's hard. It's not easy. Elko's the guy to do it because he'll sit down and explain why it didn't work, and he'll sit down. I've seen him do it.
He's a straight shooter.
He'll tell you why he screwed up. He'll tell you why he needs this and this because it's hard to do this without that. But he'll also say, yeah, that's on me about certain other things. He doesn't, he's not going to go in and bullshit these guys and girls. He's going to go in and he's going to be him. He's going to be very honest, and you're going to talk football and you're going to talk life, and he's going to do really good, and he's going to put in the work, Olin, to make sure that happens. But with that comes, yes, as the NIL number goes up, with that comes even more expectations. As, you know, all the buildings and the facilities and the amazing fan support. Incredible. We saw it all year, from Notre Dame to New Mexico State to LSU to 11 a.m. against Missouri to last night. Yes, you should demand more. You should demand more starting now. I understand you wanted to win last night. I understand. I'm pissed that A&M is not in a position in 2024 to match Texas talent for talent on the field. It shouldn't have been that way, but it was, and it had built towards that because of not one but 2 failed coaching tenures in that conference. And anyone on Jimbo's staff can sit back and second guess and play armchair quarterback now, but you had all the chances in the world. You had all the chances in the world, and you ended up being sub 500 for 2 years. I'm watching Haynes King, who basically walked out here and no one gave a shit. Other than that, he was a good kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all still rooting for Haynes. But no one really cried a tear about thinking you were losing a good quarterback. He's a damn good quarterback. They figured out how to use him. He should have beat Georgia last night with Georgia, or 2 nights ago with Georgia Tech talent. It wasn't where it needs to be. So I think you start demanding now. Let this guy get some credit for having a good first year. There's a lot to build on. It's a good first year with a bad finish. He's got to answer to that finish. He's got to fix all the reasons they lost those games, especially the start. But now you start demanding and say, we're doing all this. We want more. Mike Elko wants more. I know that. I know that the guy's probably losing sleep over this right now. But you got to go out and do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you had year one. Now you have a full cycle for your recruiting class, which you didn't have. You have a full. Here's another thing. They didn't have a full portal lead up. They got here now without studying. You're studying what you could get at Duke out of the portal. You're bringing coaches from all over. Now you've had a staff. They should be ready, locked and loaded for this portal to open. They should be getting really good players early and often. This is the first time they've had that chance. So from here on out, I think, things should be, they have to be decidedly moving up. I'm not saying it's SEC title or bust in year two, but I'm saying, okay, I think we're back to level set, which unfortunately is 8-4. But they were 5-7, 7-5, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Now we're back to level set, the norm around here, unfortunately. I hate it. Texas 8-4. It's too easy to write. They need to change that. I would at least love it to be Texas 9-3, but I want more than that. And so do the fans, and they deserve it. Mike Elko wants more than that too. Maybe that's why he went for it twice on fourth down there. He wants more than that. I think they have the right guy. I really do. I think sometimes you need to listen to what other fan bases think around this league and around the country, and other media people that aren't sitting here every day with us. And I think most believe A&M's got the right guy for Texas A&M football. And that guarantees you nothing. We all guarantees you nothing. But you're not getting there without having the right guy. And I think he showed a lot this year that he's the guy that can change a culture, Olin. And
we hear the players who have been around talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Torian York last night who said that it had been a circus. That was his word. And that it's night and day.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
And to change a culture, it doesn't happen overnight. I know we want it to. I want it to. I wanted to go out and celebrate with all you guys last night. I went out, I wanted to go see everyone acting like they did when they beat Bama, like they did when they beat LSU, like we did in Austin when I was down there when the Aggies beat the Longhorns. Like, we all wanted to see that. I wanted to see all the old Ags happy and not grumpily moving out of that stadium. I wanted to see all the college kids partying it up on North 8 and having, the time of their life. We all want that, but it changing the culture, I know we want it to, but it rarely, if ever, happens overnight from what was a losing culture. This was not. What did Kirby Smart inherit Georgia at? Because it didn't feel like Mark Richt was going like 10-2, 9-3.
Well, they still were going around that, but they wanted more.
Yeah, and A&M wants more, and A&M, like you said, deserves more. And
Mark Richt's last year at Georgia, they went 9-3.
Okay,
and they were 10-3 the year before that.
So even with that, so the talent level wasn't down at the bottom. There was no transfer portal, so it's not like a bunch of kids left when Mark Richt. Kirby still went 7-5 in his first year. I'm not saying Mike Elko's Kirby Smart. I'm saying give the man an actual chance here. And the good thing is, I think no one wants it. No one's going to work harder this offseason than him. But it's one where I go back to what you just said, Olin. A&M deserves better than year in, year out 8-4. They deserve better than to go out on the field in some of these SEC games and feel like, man, we can't match up here or there or there. They deserve to be a contender. They're putting in the money, the resources, the sweat equity, the fan support. And who would agree with us more than anybody right now?
Probably Mike Elko.
Exactly. So his actions will, like, for all of us that want that, like, let that guy go out and lead the way because he wants it as much or more than any of us. And that, to me, when the coach feels that way eventually all of his players do. And I'll credit two things I want to credit Steve Sarkisian on. Because I've been one of his biggest naysayers, let's say. Have never made it personal. I've been a naysayer. I think his career track record deserved some critique and skepticism. Literally never made it personal. I think the guy seems like a really good dude. It seems like a guy you'd hang out with, a guy the players like. But here's the thing. He didn't change that culture overnight. He leveraged some great situations in Austin with NIL, and they were getting tired of not being good. That familiar? Does that sound familiar here? A&M's leveraging NIL. They're tired of not being good. But two things about what I think with him is, A, he changed that culture, and they got gradually better. They had something that they were building towards, and he has not gotten them there all the way, but he's gotten them there step by step. The other thing is, I'll say this, last night when their players wanted to act like Ohio State, act like Michigan, right?
Right.
Yeah, their players wanted to act like Michigan, or they wanted to act like Baker Mayfield. And they wanted to go, and this is college stuff. I get it, man. You're competitive. Like, your boys at Michigan did it. The second thing that I wanted to say about Sark is when the game was over and the Texas players wanted to be Michigan, they wanted to be Baker Mayfield, they wanted to plant a flag, they wanted to, I don't know what they were going to do, dance on the logo, whatever. They were going to go to that logo, and I said, it's a ridiculous word to use, like desecrate the logo, disrespect the logo. They wanted to go, and I get it. I'm competitive as hell. Athletes that play in that arena are way more competitive than I could ever be. So you go 4 hours, you do all that smack talk, shit talking for how long, and you want to go and say, quite literally plant the flag. I credit Sark for not letting that happen and for getting over there and making sure, because you saw what happened to Michigan, Ohio State, and it's just a respect thing.
Things got ugly. Florida State last night too.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Same situation.
Yeah, I did not see
Not
it.
as ugly as Columbus, but very similar.
I credit Sark, and I think Mike Elko would have done the exact. I know Mike Elko would have done the exact same thing, and I think that what he did there with that's an example of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean he didn't build the culture quite enough that they didn't want to go do that, but he built a culture. That's just another example of the way he's trying to run it. And I think that's exactly what Elko's doing, but it shows you that it takes some time to get that going. And it's an all game, every week, every season thing. So you got to have a guy that can do that. And I do. That's the number one thing I believe in Mike Elko. And the second thing I believe is roster building. Not just recruiting, but it's recruiting, it's portal, and it's roster management. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have some
development, management, all the things that it takes.
And they got to prove it. I really like the early returns out of the portal this past year. I like the early with a shortened time frame. I like the guys he was able to convince to come back that were 1 foot out the door when the coaching changed. But you got to go out and do it again this year, and you got to do it even bigger. And he's got to look at the way they coach this year and say, these are where I think we've fallen short, and what do we need to do to fix them? So,
that it?
Let's see if we get fixed.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. We've gone forever. We're going to talk a lot more about this Texas game tomorrow. You and Nuno will. I'll be on for hour and a half tomorrow, so we'll stop it here. But also, Zane and I are going to do Ask, or Allie, whoever's here, we're going to do Ask Liucci this evening, so you guys get a little more before you don't have to wait for the cover forever. I did have a Longhorn come up to me last night. Pretty funny, dude. And I like the quote because he said, I didn't know if he knew who I was. Just said, hey, nice game. Yeah, he said, but I am looking forward to the cover story this week. I looked at him and smiled. I said, I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. It's going to be a fun conversation.
As the editor, when that thing hits the inbox, I'm also not looking forward to that thing.
Anyway, majority. I mean, I had one. Oh, anyway, okay. So anyway, we'll be busy this evening. Actually, a couple of really special. An interesting Aggie and Longhorn will be in here. Let's say you won't see it on the TexAgs TexAgs platform, but be an interesting afternoon here at TexAgs, and then I'll come back afterwards, and Zane and I will record and ask Liucci, get to all your questions, and let's just keep them about the game. It'll be an A&M Texas Ask Liucci, because unfortunately we are not going to be prepping for a trip to Atlanta, because Texas 17, A&M 7.
Plenty more to come. Thanks for tuning in to the Loochador Podcast, and our thanks to our sponsors at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Fun, memories, friendship. We're here for all of it. Here for the big moments and the small ones too. We're here for unforgettable triumph, momentary misfortune, and the impromptu throwdown. We're out here each day, chasing something great. Call it adventure, call it play, we call it fun. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.